Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and our own Hooper from Jaws, Dom. Now, insiders, we're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you, fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. That's right, we're back again. And we're going to keep coming back over and over until our next Stanley Cup champion is crowned, but we have a very long way to go to get there, and we got to find those moments to keep us hooked in between, and that is exactly what we're going to do here at the Captain Avalanche Fancast. The puck has dropped on our next season to the tune of Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby, i.e. the defending champion Florida Panthers and the Chicago Blackhawks, who didn't look all that bad for a team who was expected to lose. Mike Sullivan immediately playing his old team in the Rangers versus Pens, and of course the Los Angeles Kings versus your Colorado Avalanche. But before we get to that game, there are a few other, shall we say, touch points to discuss. There is the Slugfest in the Sunshine State. Connor McDingle takes the best deal in NHL history. New Avs defenseman Ilya Solovyov finally we'll dive back into the tank. And oh yeah, baseball is now more exciting than hockey. All that and more on this week's episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. I would like to say, Dom, that I've almost got that intro memorized after this is episode, I think, 41 out of every episode we've ever made, not counting our bonus episode that has not yet been posted. So I've almost got it at this point. I think I'll get it at some point.
I mean, I think you've got it pretty good. And really quickly, breaking news, like literally right as we started recording, Toronto scored to make it a 3-2 lead over Montreal. Like the exact second you said good sticks. And I'm like, what is happening with the world?
I was going to say, the important thing is what hockey game are we watching during the broadcast? Because you better believe that me and Dom are usually actively watching hockey while we are recording. So yeah, I got Montreal and Toronto on, and I was going to ask who do you have on, but I think you answered that question for me.
So this is actually the rare instance where you know why, but I actually don't have the game on in front of me because I was using my phone for something else, but no worries about that. So I guess, you know what, if you've got the Toronto-Montreal game on, I think I can get the Boston-Washington game on, and then we'll have full coverage of both games in live time.
There you go, everyone. Well, we will jump right into our first segment, the Slugfest in the Sunshine State. Because there has only been one game of Avs hockey and 0 games of Sharks hockey, that coincides with our schedule here, we do have to find something to talk about. Thankfully, even in the preseason, the NHL often makes that pretty easy for us. In a follow-up to last year's playoff series, the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning seemed insistent on ensuring that neither team had any players left by the end of their 2 back-to-back exhibition contests. That's right, these games weren't even for points. For those who may be unsure as to what I'm talking about, in the final 2 preseason games between the aforementioned team, there were, and let's count it off, Dom, 21 game misconducts, 450 penalty minutes, 38 power plays, 5 players left injured, and 1 goal scored by a player who was on the ice illegally. Thank you, Puck Empire, for summing up those stats. In the second game alone, there were 14 ejections. There was a point where the Tampa Bay Lightning legitimately had more players in the penalty box than they did on the bench. I don't have a stat for how long the game took, but I can promise you it was not a short one. If you are a fan of fights in hockey, this pair of games had more than enough to fill your appetite. For those who are perhaps wondering why these teams are utterly beating each other's ass more than is standard of in-state rivalries, it, at least in my eyes, comes down to retribution from last year's first-round playoff series. The hit that I feel Tampa particularly took offense to was the Aaron Ekblad elbow to the head of Brandon Hagel that left him with a concussion. What made the hit particularly egregious at the time is it wasn't called in Game 4 when it occurred. Then, following the hit, Aaron Ekblad then scores the game-tying goal, and then 11 seconds later, the Panthers take the lead. That momentum swing not only wins the Panthers that game, but aids them in taking a 3-1 series lead rather than the series being tied 2-2. And that can change things drastically. This series as a whole had a lot of nastiness to it from both sides. In the game prior, being Game 3, there were a total of 13 penalties, and that's just what had been called. Needless to say, the storylines that came from this series constructed and demonstrated a certain kind of disdain between both teams, and it evidently created a time bomb that was ready to blow when these two teams saw each other again. Now, Dom, I do have a little opinion piece here at the end, but if you wanted to add anything additionally to the Slugfest in the Sunshine State, please, by all means, interject.
I mean, is it just me, or does this seem like the type of story that's just waiting to have Florida Man in front of it like it's in the news? Because, what did you know? It's between two Florida teams. I mean, you couldn't have drawn it up any better that way. But I think you're completely correct as far as the source of this, because, I mean, he was the player. Aaron Ekblad was the player who took one of the more serious shots that has led to a suspension, I believe, for the offending player. So it makes sense that is really at the root cause, and they were certainly headhunting for him after last year to even the score. And even though it's preseason, it doesn't really matter to these two teams. That hatred runs so deep, and clearly the NHL needs to figure out a better way to legislate this or get it under control, because the teams didn't seem to care about the penalties and just kept going for it. And like you said, I mean, we'll be having no team from, after having however many consecutive years with a team from Florida in the final from the East, we might not have one this year just because they might not have any players left by the time we reach the half season point, let alone the playoffs.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that brings me perfectly into this point here, in that I love fighting and I love physicality in the game of hockey. I think players deserve to police the game, and it is the right thing to stand up for your guy. But even I found a point where I was caught thinking there needs to be, this is redundant, I'm realizing, but there needs to be a point where someone says enough. When there's an intent to injure someone and not just stand up for a teammate, but to maliciously target an opponent and attempt to sabotage their livelihood, that is where I draw the line. Both Tampa and Florida players are in the wrong here, and no one deserves to have their season ruined in the preseason over some rotten blood like this. I would want Aaron Ekblad to get his if it were my team, don't get me wrong, but after having your captain out for so long, I see the value in trying your best to keep your players healthy. It's just not worth throwing them to the wolves. It's just not worth throwing them to the wolves just to throw down. We've caught Dom mid potato bite. I bet.
So maybe it's my internet, but you cut out like 3 times there. So I couldn't tell when you were done, where it was like some solid 5-second bits where I couldn't hear you. So if we need to edit this out in post, we can, or it'll just be a funny technical difficulty. Not sure if it's my internet because my bars appear strong on my current one. But just letting you know, wanted to make sure that you were coming through clear. If we,
yeah, you're cutting out. You're cutting out as well. That's no fault of you, no fault of me. It just seems like Discord is giving us a hard time this evening, which is not at all surprising. Not even a little bit. So we will see if we can get that resolved. One moment here, ladies and gentlemen. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Okay, let's get this sorted. How much did you hear? Where do you need me to catch you up?
I mean, you cut out off and on in your last paragraph. It seemed like after sabotage their livelihood, where you draw the line there, like something about, I heard you say Tampa and Florida players are in the wrong, and then it kind of cut out. Then it got back in with Aaron MacLeod getting his own, but then cut out from there until you were talking about my potatoes.
Yeah, you kind of got the whole thing, so you're not really that behind. I just was saying that there shouldn't be an intent to injure. That's where I draw the line. And Aaron Ekblad, despite what he has done, does not deserve to have his career ended in the preseason.
Absolutely not. And that's what we've talked about before, is why the NHL is better today than it was before, because there was an intent to injure. That was just considered part of the game. And it's not mixed martial arts here, where there is a need to injure your opponent to win. That is not necessary in hockey. It is a byproduct, but it is not the objective. And I think we can safely say both Florida teams forgot that this week.
Oh, God. You've got me mid-chicken bite. No, I thought you had more. Oh, no. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm eating on the podcast again. I just can't help myself. No!
We have technical difficulties, potato difficulties, chicken difficulties. Welcome to the ride that is the Captain Avalanche Fancast, folks. And just buckle up, because it's only going to get better from here. Don't forget to also drink your water and hydrate while you're listening to us, because, it's good for you.
Yes, agreed. Always drink your water. Okay. Moving on, though. Anything else you wanted to add for the Slugfest in the Sunshine State, Dom?
Yeah, I guess one final thing, and I know you said it in your point. If anybody loves physicality in hockey, it's me. And I do like the fight. I believe it's part of it. But like you said, Corey, it's not headhunting. It's not sucker punching, right? It's about two guys both agreeing to go toe-to-toe, right? It's about guys getting physical and looking out for each other, like you said, not trying to harm each other. So even though in the previous episodes I've endorsed the physicality in that aspect of hockey, I just wanted on the record that I do not condone the behavior of either of these teams. I believe both have received some punishment. Perhaps we could debate whether or not that was severe enough, but I hope that they learn their lessons and don't take that animosity too heavily into the regular season. But you know what? You can best believe that the next time Florida plays Tampa, I will be tuning in just in case, because it will be great content for us to talk about, and we'll want to be able to bring you the full analysis in real time.
I am certainly curious to see how a regular season matchup is about to go between these two teams. But honestly, I recommend, anybody go back and watch that game. If you just want to see what the penultimate fireworks in hockey looks like, go and give that preseason game a rewatch. So I guess, people would say the preseason is pointless and boring. You are very wrong, because you get shit like that. So go us.
And hey, I mean, like you said, we were talking that preseason can be boring and sloppy. Well, I mean, maybe that was sloppy for certain. It was sloppy character on both sides. But,
sloppy.
Certainly wasn't boring, eh?
Do you know what I was referencing? Extra sloppy. Have you seen Billy Madison with Adam Sandler?
Oh, sorry. It's been a while. That admittedly is not my favorite Adam Sandler one.
It's the lunch lady, and she's giving him a sloppy Joe, and she's like, "It's extra sloppy."
The more you're saying it, the more I'm picturing it. It's been a while since I watched Billy Madison. There are a lot of Happy Gilmore. Seriously, I was just gonna call him Happy Gilmore. So there you go. I like the original on that one. There's a lot of Adam Sandler movies that I do like. So I guess I have to get back to the top of the order and go through the rotation again and watch Billy Madison. Get caught back up so I don't miss that reference next time.
The Adam Sandler rotation. It's okay, Dom. Nobody ever knows my movie references. Only my mom. Thanks, Mom.
Have some more! They're sloppy Joes. I made them extra sloppy for you. I know how you kids like them sloppy.
We'll jump right into our next segment here, I think, and that's Connor McDingle has resigned. After Kirill Kaprizov became the highest paid player in NHL history at $17 million a year, mind you, all eyes turned to looming free agent Connor McDavid, who, even in my opinion, could demand much more than that. I, to be frank, was not convinced he would stay in Edmonton, and if he did, it would have to be another standout season with the Oilers, and he would drag the issue all the way to free agency. However, rather than keep his team, himself, and the rest of the league and fans in suspense for the season, Connor McDavid has decided to take a short-term 2-year deal at the exact same AAV that he makes now at $12.5 million. Don't get it twisted. This is an insane discount when Leon Draisaitl makes $14 million, and I do have a bit more respect for McDavid now, as he truly does seem committed to winning with the Oilers, and they have both given him reason to believe and to be doubtful, which is why he left himself a way out, but we'll get to that. And just weighing in, McDavid was just for all intents and purposes, weighing his options, and after that decided to drop a bomb on the rest of the league. With the salary cap rising, it absolutely gives Stan Bowman and the rest of the organization some flexibility to build a more complete roster in theory. Regardless, you are still paying Draisaitl $14 million, which he absolutely has earned, and then Evan Bouchard at 10.5 and Darnell Nurse at 9.25. However, they do have some fantastic bargains in their forward group in Zach Hyman and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. But this is not an analysis of the Oilers' cap situation. This is about McDavid. There is still an out in his contract and with a contract that affordable, with the cap going up, he could still get traded to a contender for an absolute haul if he deems that to be the case. I really do see this going one of two ways. The Oilers either win a cup or go on a few more deep runs and get close, but not quite, and McDavid extends further with the team, with then a much higher hit once this contract expires and the cap is over $100 million. Or the Oilers decline and fail to make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals, and he decides he would rather chase a ring with a younger contender. He'll be 31, if I recall, when this contract expires, so he by no means will be slowing down. Then he'll exit Edmonton and get a massive extension with whomever he deems a worthy suitor. Either way, this ends with McDavid getting a massive raise. The positive part for him is that he can likely get that raise without taking up any more cap percentage than he already does. This will be a saga we will continue to watch with great intensity. My feelings for the Oilers are well documented, but I truly do have some admiration for this decision. But I do want the Avs to ultimately win the cup, so I'm curious to see what the hell is going to be the result of all this.
Yeah, I mean, if the salary cap is above, what is it projected? If it's $95 million this year, $104 next season, and what would it be, $113 plus after that, and maybe it'll reach $120 by the time.
Year? Wait, really? I thought it was only 88. Maybe that was last year. Oh, it is like it's 95.5 this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, when you think about it, if the cap reaches 120 when he's looking to sign his next contract or somewhere around there, and Kaprizov has set the market at 17, I agree. McDavid is probably worth more. And like I told you directly, we just can't call him McDingle anymore when he's doing this the right way. He's showing some loyalty to Edmonton, taking a massive discount for his talent level to be paid less than Draisaitl. But I agree, he's playing the long game, because if he is 31 when he signs his next contract, it will be that 8-year max extension. So he'll be getting, let's say, north of $150 million all told when you factor in 8 years times, let's say, $19 $13 million. That adds up real quick, and he'd still be getting paid that at the age of 39. So it's really smart business on his part, playing with where the cap is going, and he also, in the meantime, in the short term, looks like an absolute hero and has the fans of Edmonton on his side. But, I have to say, as a Sharks fan, when there were the rumors of him possibly moving on from Edmonton, I was admittedly hopeful. Could you imagine McDavid and Celebrini playing together? Like, the Sharks would not only jump from not being in the basement, they would be right in the playoff hunt instantly, just with that goal scoring power that they could outscore everybody as their defense gets figured out.
That would be pretty hype. I will say, though, that you're slightly incorrect, Dom, that when he signs his next contract, it can in fact only be a max of 7 years in accordance to the new CBA that goes into effect this next year.
Good point. I had forgotten about that. So you're right. It can only be 7 years maximum. So I guess he can't crack 150 million, but he could still scrape just at 140 million if he's getting per year, which Kaprizov's getting 17 per year now. 2 years from now, why can't McDavid? Or is it 3 years? Because we still have this whole season
3.
plus the 2-year extension. So 3 years. 3 years from now, is it crazy to think that he would be worth $3 more million than what Kaprizov got? I don't think so. So 20 million x 7 years, 140, no big deal. I feel like that seems to be what
You cut out, but I know exactly what you were trying to say. Man, the internet is not being kind to us tonight. What a shock. Thanks, Discord. We really appreciate your efforts in helping us record the Captain Avalanche fan cast. But it is interesting that you bring up Kaprizov, because I have a few additional talking points here in regards to that. I think a lot of people felt that Kaprizov was going to reset the market here with him taking $17 million. But a point was brought up to me that I saw that the Wild kind of shoestring themselves in the fact that they said, we will do whatever it takes to keep Kirill Kaprizov. So that doesn't really put a lot of leveraging power in their negotiations. And so, of course, they end up giving him the bag because he's the best player in their team's history. They don't want to give him up. Whereas, oh man, what am I trying to get at here? Obviously, they did not have any negotiating power, and yet you still have guys like Connor McDavid and now Jack Eichel today still taking, I think, more reasonable cap hits that going into the next few years here with the cap rising are going to end up being super team friendly. Even though today they seem like bigger numbers, once we actually get to the time, they might even be taking up less cap space than they do now while getting paid more. What a fucking steal. So, seeing Eichel sign for that 13.5 today, which I don't think, given his talents and now Stanley Cup pedigree, is wholly unreasonable. I think the Wild might have, dare I say, overpaid.
Well, I certainly agree that they might have overpaid. I think when you are negotiating out of desperation, you're bound to overpay pretty much no matter what. And I just have to say, this is classic Wild. This is why I picked them to finish 6th. They have all the things lined up. It's easy enough, and they choked it. They didn't know how to go into a negotiation right. So, I mean, look, any of us have this happen with our employer where we want to ask for a higher number and HR is going to give us a lower number, and we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. They clearly missed that first step with the lower number part and establishing a reasonable range, and then gave up their leverage, their bargaining power, like you said, Corey. And so they would either not have their star player, anger the fan base, and certainly not make the playoffs, or take a chance and hope they can keep the pieces around him healthy and make it to a cup. But, and play with the saying that as the salary cap goes up, maybe if it's not this year, maybe it's a year or two from now, we'll have a little bit more money to work with. Of course, the problem is that everybody's going to start wanting more money across the board because now there's more money to be had. Even if you take the same percentage of the pie, like you're saying, Corey, that's still more money. So I don't know if the math helps them out in the end if he's going to be getting paid a higher percentage than other players that are, like you said, arguably of a higher caliber when it comes to players like McDavid. I mean, let's be real. Top 3 player in the world is McDavid. And we would say Kaprizov is top 10 for sure. But is he better than McDavid? No. Is he better than McKinnon? Is he better than Makar? I think you know the answer to those ones. So I think that proves the point.
Well, and I want to just say now that this thought that's about to come out of my mouth is not wholly mine, but I do very much agree with it that, first of all, the NHLPA is probably pissed that these guys are taking smaller deals, and that players of this caliber, of Connor McDavid's caliber, of Eichel's caliber, can actively take more because their deals won't expire. Their old deals won't expire until the salary cap goes up. We're not in that flat cap era anymore. They can take more now, and yet they still choose to take those team-friendly deals, and they're still getting paid. I mean, fuck, give me $12.5 million. Give me $13.5 million. That's team-friendly. I mean, that's insane that, and that's what I think people will have to get used to, and I'm not the first one to say this, is getting used to seeing players sign at those higher numbers, and you can't panic, especially when Marty Necas signs for 11 or 12 million. You can't panic when you see that as a fan because you have to realize that that's going to be the standard, and that's going to be taking up the same percentage of cap space that player took up previously. The cap's going up, so players are just going to be getting paid more. But with looking at McDavid and Eichel in this situation, it's really interesting because it's like, well, now instead of these bigger players taking more like people expected and Kaprizov really being the only person who did that, does that mean that perhaps these superstar players will, instead of following Kaprizov's example, follow McDavid and Eichel's example and seek to leave their teams with more of this increased cap space so they can then build better teams around themselves? I am interested to see where this goes because I think everybody thought the Kirill Kaprizov signing was going to send the McDavid signing, send the Jack Eichel signing in a very northward, skyward, to the moon direction, and it didn't. And that's the really curious part about it. I think I finally formulated a complete thought there. So I think I got to the point that I was trying to make.
I think you did as well. And my only caveat is your statement missing the word yet? If it didn't yet, and that's where I'm like, 3 years from now, is McDavid going to get 20 million? And we just don't know. We're not there yet. We can't fast forward into the future or have a time machine. We would predict the Stanley Cup champion every year if we could. And we would just be the best podcast out there, even more than we already are with all of our correct predictions. But but seriously, we just don't know. But I agree, and I do love to see it because whether or not the NHL likes it or the NHLPA likes it, as a fan, I like it. I like to see these players that even when they're getting paid and paid more than other players have in history, and even if they're worth more and they're not as paid as much as other sports are, like the NBA or the NFL, they're still committed to the competition aspect. And they would rather have a good team and compete rather than get paid to skate out there for 82 games on a losing team. So that gives me just more inspiration or hope, just joy, great gratitude to be an NHL fan and know that the players are committed to the game. And that's going to keep it enjoyable for us all to watch. And they all should be getting paid more. And lastly, yeah, we had the flat cap era for a long time. And in the span of like 5 years, the cap's going to shoot up by like north of 30 million. So it's going to increase by something like 40% from where it was at in the span of 5 years. So even over the past however many years, decades, where things have been a lot more stable on the cap, the increases when they were there were smaller, but inflation was still a thing, cost of living went up. Now we're actually seeing growth in the salary cap that is more than proportional, and so these players can get paid more without it being a detriment to their team. That should be the goal. And lastly, I know I've said like lastly like 3 times in here, but credit to you, credit to me, credit to all of us fans. By us watching the game, growing the game, supporting the game all over the world, that means that there will be more revenue. These players will get paid more, and the product is going to continue to go up. It's going to become better and better to watch. We're going to get more things like the Four Nations and even better. So I think it's a good thing all around for everybody to see what McDavid did, and it's much bigger than just his one contract at the end of the day.
That was very well said, Dom. Thank you. Well, obviously then, what all Avs fans are then wondering is, how does this affect the Marty Party? And the short answer is, based on how well I predicted Mikko Rantanen last year, I don't know. But if I had to venture a guess, knowing how the Avalanche operate and how successful the systems are for the Avs and that they've made Marty Necas. I mean, he fits like a glove. Speed kills is the Avalanche, and that is Marty Necas as a player. I feel like he will be more reasonable to take a more reasonable cap hit. I think that's still in the $10.5 to $11 million range. Hell, it might even be for $12 million, because unfortunately the Avalanche didn't have the information at the time that the cap would be going up as much as it did in terms of Mikko Rantanen. Had they waited, had they known that, had negotiations not been totally snafu'd, which I fully acknowledge, they probably would have just signed him for $12 million like he got signed for. Maybe even 12.5 if they were willing, knowing that the cap was going to shoot up as much as it did. But unfortunately, we're past that point now. We can't quick save or can't load an auto save. So we have to look at where we are right now, and that is with Martin Necas. And please God, after game 1's performance, just pay him. Pretty please. Just pay the guy so we can quit thinking about this. He's clearly not thinking about it. He's playing out of his goddamn mind in game 1. But we're thinking about it. So I would appreciate if we could not drag this out any longer. Please, God, not till January or the trade deadline. Let's just sign him and we can all just be happy.
Yeah, pay him so all the trolls will shut up and not say he's going somewhere else. And pay him before the price goes up even more. Because, yeah, like you said, no spoilers, but he had an incredible start to the season that I'm sure you will talk about in a bit more detail. And I think it's only wheels up from here. So, and you're right. I think something you said about Rantanen, perhaps the word you were looking for is we cannot perseverate on him any longer because that time is past. The Avs need to move on, and they are with this team now. And while Rantanen is a one-of-one talent in the NHL, that he is one of a kind, right? Martin Necas actually fits in with the scheme a bit better, if I'm being honest, with that speed kills aspect. So I don't know. I think it's intriguing, and we can't live in a world of ifs and buts and what ifs. We just got to live in the here and now, and Martin Necas is playing great, and the sooner you sign him, the better for everyone.
You're exactly right, Dom. And I'm currently getting caught with my metaphorical pants down as I did not copy my notes that I took from the Kings game over to my document. So I'm just going to be stalling. Dom, tell the audience a joke while I do this.
A joke? Oh,
Yeah.
you're asking the wrong person.
What do you mean? You have dad jokes for days every single time. Now when I ask you for a joke, you don't have a joke?
Yeah, they just happen to happen in the moment. But I guess here, if you want a dad joke, Corey, do you know what I did yesterday?
Oh God.
I went to buy a pair of camouflage pants, but I couldn't find any.
I regret.
You asked for it.
I regret making this request. Everybody, remind me in the future to never again ask Dom to tell a joke. But it's okay. I got everything moved over now. But before we jump into the game here, I do have a small player profile on the Avalanche's latest waiver pickup, and that's whose name I could not pronounce earlier. That's Ilya Solovyov. How would you say this, Dom? You're in my document. How would you say this name? Solovyov. That feels like Solovyov. saying that out loud.
Yeah, it's Solovyov or Solovyov, like you're saying, maybe a little bit more E on it.
Solovyov. Well,
Yeah, I think
hopefully,
that sounds right.
hopefully he gets some time on ice because that is my best guess. If you know in the comments, well, maybe like type in the phonetic thing in the comments. Let us know because I have no idea. That's just my best guess at a hockey name. But before anything else, fear not, Avs faithful, for Keaton Middleton has cleared waivers and is still a part of the Avalanche program. He is just down in the AHL with the Eagles. Why is that, Captain, you may ask? Wasn't Keaton a big part of preseason, set to be the Avs' 7th defenseman? Yes, you are correct. And Keaton even had the added value of being a lefty on an Avs team loaded with righties. So loaded that Sam Malinsky had to switch to the left-hand side that we've heard nothing about in any of the games that we've watched. None of the announcers have ever even spoken on the fact that Sam Malinsky has had to switch to his left-hand side. If you couldn't tell, I'm being very sarcastic. But as much as we will miss our big, beautiful boy, the Avs made a waiver claim that seems to drive Flames and Wranglers fans crazy, and that is left-handed Belarusian defenseman Ilya Solovyov. Solovyov? We'll get there. Ilya is on the up and up as he hit his best point totals with the Calgary Wranglers in the AHL last season with 28 points made up of 22 assists and a nice 6 goals. A personal best with American hockey anyways. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a terrible amount of analysis information or recent highlights on Solovyov. However, there does seem to be some annoyance from the Flames fan base that he was waived over some other defensemen that they deem lesser and shittier, as they say. This is an incredibly low-risk move for the Avalanche, and it deepens their left side. Ilya has been a plus in a large majority of his seasons, depending on how much stock you put in that. At this point, I am a victim of time and the inability to navigate the AHL and its player pool. I am frustrated as I wanted to bring you more, as I think any new name to the Avs organization can be an important one, even if it doesn't seem like it at the time, and it does help to know who the hell is skating around out there. But it does, regardless, provide the Avalanche with options, and that is never a bad thing in the world of professional sports. It deepens the pool and ensures there is someone there to step up in the event that he is needed. But I will be curious to take a look at him when he does eventually get an opportunity to step out onto the ice in an Avs uniform. And if you're a big Eagles fan, a big Colorado Eagles watcher, not the Philadelphia Eagles, go Broncos! Yeah! Let's go, Bo. I'm a believer. I'm a believer out there, everybody. Definitely keep an eye out for him as well. And let us know your assessment from a fan perspective. And either Dom has ran to the other side of the world or Discord is once again doing us a disservice. Dom, are you with us?
Yeah,
okay.
Discord pulled a green flash and just flipped me upside down where I couldn't hear much of anything. But I'm back. You know, there was a second green flash. It was apparently sunrise and sunset all in the time that you were talking there. So good for me, I guess. I didn't miss anything this time around. But yeah, go. You know, the Broncos aren't my team. My team, we won't bring it up here. This isn't a football podcast, and I don't want it.
He roots for the Patriots, everybody. Boo! Boo this man! Boo!
All my life. But you know what? The Patriots and Broncos actually have something in common. They took the last 2 undefeated teams and put a loss on their record. That's on hilarious. The road, no less. So marching into that team stadium, those 4-0 teams are now 4-1. And I think it ties the fastest time in the past 20 years that there are no undefeated teams left in the NFL. So for those of you who, like me, love hockey and football, what a great season to be watching all around. It's going to be exciting bunch of sports that are going to be really competitive this year across the board.
What the fuck are you doing, Dom? This is a hockey podcast. Why are you talking about football? I would never bring up football at any point. How dare you?
I know, I'm just the worst. I mean, I already knew this, though. I'm a Patriots fan and have been all my life, so I'm kind of used to Broncos fans hating on me.
Anyway, who's ready to actually talk about some Avalanche hockey? Yeah! Okay.
Ooh, me, I am.
So unfortunately, everybody, Dom will not get to talk about a Sharks game until next week, although he does still have some Sharks content for us, thankfully. But before we get there, we do, in fact, have an Avalanche game as they were a part of the triple header on Puck Drop for opening night in the league. And I could not be more thrilled about that fact. Now, normally I don't have any like pregame notes. Sometimes I do, but there are a couple things that I just needed to bring up here from the start of this lovely contest. One was this comment that I wrote, which was, what in the sweet fuck are those uniforms with those helmets? Oh my lord, they look like they were spray painted matte silver. I learned later that this was a surprise uniform drop from the Kings. No one knew this was coming. These were brand new. The uniforms were kind of okay. They kind of looked like duct tape on the like arms and on the back and with the coloring. And the helmets, boy oh boy, I think I preferred the shiny silver helmets to whatever the fuck those were. Woof. Did you happen to see these, Dom?
Yeah, I'm as a Sharks fan happy to see LA has fallen so far. Because you can't call yourself the Kings and then march out there walking around with what looks like, I mean, if it was gold, like colored, I'd say it was like more like pyrite. But no, I mean it was terrible. It looks like someone took sandpaper to their old uniforms on the helmets, at least. The jerseys, yeah, they're all right. I mean the fact that the helmet doesn't even match the color of the gray in the jersey, though, is what gets me. Regardless of if it was matte or shiny, the shades should match. And it just clearly doesn't. It's kind of an eyesore out there on the ice. It doesn't blend in with the white, but it doesn't pop off it either. So the contrast on the ice just looks really, really bad. Like at least the Avs helmets they're wearing are white, so you can still see where their head is, but it blends in nicely. It looks super crisp when they're moving around. Their jerseys pop more, but yeah, I think woof is the best you could say for that. Shout out Bernie.
Yeah, it was they were not my my favorite thing that I've ever seen on the ice, but thankfully that's not my team, and the Avalanche are getting Nordiques jerseys this year, which have all but been confirmed. I believe we talked about them last week. So we can at least look forward to that. So, One other comment I had was Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, who, you know, I like Iron Maiden enough, not necessarily my favorite band, but I like the music that in the genre that Iron Maiden is a part of. And Bruce Dickinson, to his credit, sings that music very well. However, singing the national anthem, he did not do so well. He's also British, which I thought was an interesting choice, or English, however you prefer. Yeah, I've heard worse national anthems, but this was, how do I say, far from the best.
Not the start of the season, the opening night you would expect with the quality for sure. And I mean, he's British. He might be, it's not too far from LA. Actually, I had pulled up the highlights replay because I wanted to see, and now I have it on the fight that happened in the first period. Those jerseys, the logo is actually a throwback, or it's an old logo they're trying to bring back. But without the purple in it, it just doesn't work nearly as well. So I actually have to rate these jerseys worse than I initially did because I thought there was still some hints of purple in there, and there just isn't. So disappointing.
I agree. I am also a fan of the purple. I like their purple and gold ones the most personally. Like those old ones I like a lot. But yeah, these were not quite the move. Oh boy. I turned on the Oilers in Calgary for the Battle of Alberta, and there's Stuart Skinner in all his mustachioed glory skating out for another season of Oilers hockey. Okay. That's besides the point. Avalanche. So, to me, on the whole, this game, they won 4-1. So, I mean, you can't complain in that regard. The Avalanche took control of the game and they maintained control of the game, which I love. However, it was not, in my opinion, the cleanest win that I have ever seen. And I think there is still plenty of improvements that the Avalanche need to make going forward. However, if this is your starting point, you're already doing pretty damn well. But I made my very first note for this game was that passes were not connecting early on, and there seemed to be some trouble in getting zone entries. And the Avalanche did not feel super relaxed really at all during this game. But that unfortunately persisted throughout the entire game. I have seldom seen their sticks so Swiss cheese. Not only could a puck never stay on any Avalanche player's stick at any point in the game, but they just seem to forget what color jersey their teammates are wearing. The inability to pass to each other was causing me physical pain. There's multiple instances where Marty Necas, bless his soul, passed directly to a Kings player. Nichushkin had multiple no-look passes, and he certainly wasn't fucking looking because he passed it to nobody. Brother, do a head check. Look where the puck is going. The turnovers were so egregious, and it just led to a few really good chances for the Kings. So thank fuck for Scott Wedgwood, who had a shutout bid all the way up until like the final 5 minutes when we got to the chaotic third period, which we will get to. But it was kind of ugly, and the Avalanche just did not look as smooth as I would have expected them to. However, in the few moments that they were smooth, they scored fucking goals. And boy, oh boy, were they each sexy as sexy could be. First one, an absolutely gorgeous feed from Nathan MacKinnon at the beginning of the second period, flying around the net, sees Martin Necas, threads it through like 20 Kings players, and Necas just fires it perfectly to where it needs to be, over the shoulder of Darcy Kemper, former Avalanche netminder. Next one, Sam Olinsky, already off to a good start with the bigger responsibility that he has, getting the puck in the net, and this one wasn't taken away. He was a victim of circumstance last year, scored like 20 goals, but had half of them taken away when he was apparently offsides. So it's good to see him get a goal early on, and that was with the fourth line. So Gavin Brindley, who also had a great night and we'll get to, got to have a couple pluses on his score sheet. Third goal was Cale Makar. Who are you? Dom, did you happen to see the Cale Makar assist that led to the goal?
I actually have not seen that one. You'll have to tell me about it.
So, you know how Cale Makar is just the king of the blue line, but he also has a nice fake slap shot that he likes to pull out to pull defenders to him. Well, that's exactly what he does. Fakes the slapper and then just carves between two Kings defenders and skates downhill to the front of the net, tips it on net, and Arturi Lehkonen, who can only score goals while he is falling, does exactly that as he's cross-checked from behind by Cody Ceci, legendary defenseman of the LA Kings, San Jose Sharks, Dallas Stars, and the 1,000 other teams that Cody Ceci has played for. But Arturi Lehkonen tucks in the third, and then Marty Necas on a power play later in the third. At the very start of it, the Avs, after 5 opportunities, finally get the puck in the net off of another gorgeous Marty Necas, just bomb. So, gotta love that. But I didn't love all of the feeling and looks in between. And I will say, though, is that the Avalanche did, in fact, have great defensive plays to make up for a lot of their gaffes. And I really appreciated that they got back when they fucked up. Taves in particular looked really great early on, and I mean, continued throughout the entire game. So can't complain that that consistency has already shown up early. Fun fact that I caught during the broadcast is that Gavin Brindley, when his dad played in college, where that was is escaping me, he actually was a line mate with Jared Bednar, coach of the Avalanche. So Gavin Brindley's dad played college hockey with Jared Bednar, who now coaches his son. So just a little interesting tidbit there.
Small world. Yeah, I don't know this Jared Bednar you speak of. I only know Barid Jednar.
I was so hoping that you had forgotten. That is so disappointing. All right.
I remembered it here. Just to make it even worse, I have another dad joke for you that's fitting of it being October and hockey themed.
Please.
So what did the skeleton drive to the hockey game?
What did the skeleton drive to the hockey game, Dom?
A Zamboni.
Oh, bro.
Okay, I'm done now.
This guy stinks!
Everybody, please vote in the comments who should be the next co-host of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Unfortunately, Dom has come down with death disease, and this will be his final episode of the show. We will miss him dearly, but we will begin our search for our next podcast host post haste after this episode has concluded. So everybody say goodbye to Dom. Just kidding. Anyway, speaking of Gavin Brindley, because I'm going to just move right on past that, Gavin Brindley did take great advantage of the opportunities that he was given. And I mean, all night just played with absolute fire, which if you're an undersized forward, you have to be doing. Had the post not robbed him, he absolutely would have had a goal. And I was frankly really impressed with his play. Even in limited minutes on the fourth line, he did great. Now, when I talked about the Avalanche getting back on their, I think sometimes really bad turnovers, to see Nathan MacKinnon hustle full bore like he's coming to the net, but instead coming back to defend is really promising. That's, I think, maybe one complaint you could have with Nathan MacKinnon is that his defensive game somewhat lacks, but I mean, he doesn't really need to have a defensive game when the puck is always on his stick. But on nights like the one last night where the pucks just can't seem to find an Avalanche stick, it's good when he can be contributed to the team in that way. So definitely very happy about that. Speaking of defense, this is why Josh Manson was signed to an extension, as he sent a man to the Shadow Realm. And if you haven't seen the hit, I will link it in the description of this video, because, oh my goodness. Dom, how would you describe that hit? It was on Warren Fogle. I was trying to remember who it was on.
Well, we were talking about what not to do in hockey and all the unnecessary headhunting. This is how you hit clean and hard. And sometimes the NHL gets those mixed up these days, where guys are going to want to have a scuffle, a bit of a tussle after each clean hit. But wow, I don't know how to describe it other than I think he was the one who got hit by the Zamboni from the looks of it.
Yeah, truly. It was like a Mack truck. I'm pretty sure Josh Manson could bump into me or you on the street and I would just die instantaneously. Like, it was a very clean hit, which unfortunately led to a response from, I believe it was Alex Turcotte, who jumped off the bench and was given the instigator penalty. And apparently, or no, it wasn't Turcotte. Who the fuck was it? He has a brother in the UFC. And that was the joke. Let me see what his name was. Jeff Malott. There we go. I found it. It was Jeff Malott, whose brother is Mike Malott. So Jeff Malott jumped off the bench, which you are not allowed to do. And I understand standing up for your teammate, but I mean, come on, it's a clean hit. But that seemed to really wake the Avalanche up, because that was towards the end of the period, because they opened up the second, finally scoring. However, from there, it just didn't feel smooth for me, because the Kings still got a lot of rush chances. And then unfortunately, the Avalanche just kept getting power play after power play after power play. It was a real boner killer because you would hope so bad that with a new power play coach that it was going to be better. And it wasn't, even though they did score in one power play. So in theory, we have a 20% power play right now because we finally scored in 1 out of 5 chances. However, that being said, don't panic yet. It looks booty ass right now. It does. But this team absolutely has the weapons for this power play to be successful. And even though this game was also dominant, it's also game 1. So give the bad things some time for them to become good, and give the good things time to become even better. So don't, as I always say, don't be hitting the panic button yet. It's good that they opened the season with a win, though, but it is good to see. Or it was not great to see the poor power play. However, the Avs have won in Crypto.com Arena more than any other road team since the 1920 season, which I believe with 9 wins, which is pretty great. I did also make a comment at one point that Necas has only passed to Kings players, to which my mom rebutted, "You're right, he passed to Darcy Kemper and he missed." So there you go. There you go, Mom.
That was a good one. Wait, that was a good one. But really quickly, you were saying it. It's game 1. And you guys look dominant while also playing mid at best, let's say, but not your best game, right, as a team for the Avs. And you still looked dominant for most of that game. That's a great sign, especially against a team that was in the playoffs last year. I know everybody has rust all around the league, but great teams, championship winning teams, find a way to win ugly. And bringing it back to the football references and comparisons, you hear that all the time when talking about the NFL. And I think it's the same here with the NHL. The Florida Panthers, why have they won 2 consecutive cups? They've gotten really good at winning ugly and have also been able to win in super flashy ways, and they can do both. We know the Avs can be flashy, so showing that they can win ugly is a great sign for their potential for the year to come. And you're right, it's still early. It's going to get better. The opponents are going to get better as well, but I think that there's a lot of positives to take from this or give me more hope for the Avalanche overall.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I hope to see, is that they take this game and they continue to build on the positives and use it to learn from the negatives. Because there was still, despite my grumbling and griping here, there was still a lot of great things to take away from this game. I mean, fuck, they still won 4-1. And frankly, the Kings wouldn't have even had a goal had it not been for a 5-on-3, which we'll talk about the third here. It was when the chaos really started to unfold here. The Kings were collapsing, in front of their net to try and stop any other Avalanche attempts. And unfortunately, the Avalanche were really giving the momentum back to the Kings in this third period that they themselves had established in the second. And so they're like, well, we got to give the Kings a chance here. And it was just a parade to the penalty box. However, because the Kings were being silly, and I believe it was Clark was also being silly, it was somewhat equal and equivalent towards the end of the game, really diminishing and extinguishing the Kings' chance to make any meaningful plays in the final 7 minutes, we'll say. But I will say, despite the scrambly defense, Scott Wedgwood, I just need to reiterate, bailed this team out so many times. Obviously, we don't want Mackenzie Blackwood to be injured for a long time, but man, Scott Wedgwood looked so good in this game. And man, I cannot tell you how much I love Wedge Dad, and just how, let me put it this way. If Georgiev, bless his soul, truly, if Georgiev had been in net for this game, the Avalanche would have lost. Because last year they played the Vegas Golden Knights and also scored 4 goals. But then between Georgiev and Onanen, I believe they let in 6. When scoring 4 goals isn't enough to win a game, I'm seriously concerned. So if Georgiev had been in net, they would have lost. Straight up. They would have lost because Gavin Brindley, for example, was playing really well, had a brutal rookie turnover right in front of Scott Wedgwood, but he bailed him out with a great pad save. And that's all you can ask for from your goaltender. Make the saves that should be routine and make a few that shouldn't be. And that's one of those shouldn't be's. So this tandem is going to carry this team this year, and I'm just beyond relieved that we finally don't have to have a conversation about our goaltending anymore. Yes, again, first game, but Scott Wedgwood demonstrated last year that he can step up if he needs to, and he's already demonstrating that he can maintain that consistency, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. Couple other...
I've said it. I've said it once. Sorry, Corey.
No, that's my fault.
I've said it once. I've said it 100 times. Y'all have the best goaltending tandem in the entire NHL, and I am jealous. It's like damn. I am jealous of that tandem. I mean, I do miss Blackwood, but Wedgwood is, I mean, incredible. You went through it. His stats were virtually identical to Blackwood's last year. So, good, man. Good isn't even a good enough word for it. Great isn't a good enough word. I'm running out of positive adjectives to describe how he plays and how underrated Scott Wedgwood is, because he's been looked at this backup goaltender, and you know what? He's like the best backup you could ever have.
Yeah, exactly. At least right now. And it's unfortunate because, you know, you have Ilya Nabokov on his way up for the Avalanche, which of course you want to see that. But man, I will forever, Scott Wedgwood will forever be a legend in my mind. And if anybody has an authentic Scott Wedgwood jersey, I already want it. So hit me up. But a couple extra notes here is that it was really funny because I saw Brent Burns covered the in the box penalty box camera with his stick, so you couldn't see him through that camera. So that was pretty funny. The PK for the Avs was really great, and they actually have a lot more options on PK this year. For example, I saw Nelson out there. Obviously, they're deploying Burns. So it's just great that they're able to take some of the load off of guys like Cale Makar and Devon Taves when it comes to situations like these. And the shot blocking also for the Avs was great. I saw Parker Kelly take one pretty much straight into the body, and he acted like nothing happened after the fact because the man is just a machine. So definitely can't complain in that regard. This wasn't called out as hard, but Edmondson of the Kings is a fat-ass oaf, and he almost had a knee-on-knee with Gabriel Landeskog. You could cross-check him in the teeth and make him lose some. I'd be more okay with that than a fucking... That is like the one thing you don't want to happen. Thankfully, we avoided anything serious, but it terrified me. Like, I would have cried for days if after 3 years Gabriel Landeskog fights, he plays his first regular season game, and he goes out because some fucking no-name dipshit on the Kings skating around like a fucking ogre, doesn't know how to watch himself and knee-on-knees him. Are you kidding me? I'm sure Edmondson's very nice off the ice, but on the ice, I do not like him.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you cut out there.
No, I was done.
Was he just like Shrek out there? Did Landy get in his swamp or something?
No, he just wasn't paying attention.
Oh wow, so just that dumb. He doesn't even have any character reference, anything special about him that makes him worth remembering. Just an oaf who almost ruined everything. The Avs captain season in his return to regular season play.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, the end of this game was chaos. 5 penalties in the last 7 minutes and 3 seconds, which is absurd. Pretty much no 5-on-5 play to end it. But it's how you start. And it wasn't perfect, but it was still great. And the Avs are still on the path to 82-0. And one final note from this game, for those who didn't see, is that Nathan MacKinnon is the highest scoring Av of all. You know what? Nope, that's not the right way to say it. Nathan MacKinnon is the highest scoring Av of all time. That's right. Nathan MacKinnon has passed the legendary Joe Sakic for most points in an Avalanche uniform at now 10-16, 10-17. It was 10-16 to pass, but he's had like 2 or 3 points in this game, which is just incredible. And it very likely seems to be the case that MacKinnon will also pass one of the Stasny brothers for the second in all time in both Avalanche and Nordiques history. Obviously, Joe Sakic had a few hundred points with the Nordiques before they became the Avalanche. So Nathan MacKinnon is on his way to chasing that number, which it would not surprise me if at the very least he matched it, because he got the same number of points in the same number of games as Joe Sakic. 10-15 and 870, which is just insane to think about. So great stuff.
That actually is crazy.
It is. It
crazy
really
to
is.
see those match identically with those star player franchise. That's unheard of. Like, weird. So weird. Like, what a coincidence.
But I do think that Nathan MacKinnon, arguably, if you want, arguably on the path to be the best Av of all time, but at the very least on the path to be the highest scoring Av of all time. Definitely making his case to be on the Mount Rushmore of Avalanche players, which I think has been quite the debate lately. I think it's hard to say because I wouldn't want to remove Patrick Waugh from that Mount Rushmore, but there's only space for 4, and I definitely know who my 4 would be.
Mount Rushmore's arbitrary. If this is, what's the biggest mountain here in Colorado, Corey? You might know better than I.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we make our own rules, so we could carve it out. There could be 5 on this Mount Rushmore. You don't know. They were planning to do more than just 4.
No, we got to stick to the rules here. But for those wondering, it would be Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Nathan MacKinnon, and Cale Makar. That is my current Mount Rushmore of Avalanche players.
Fair enough. Yeah, and then obviously honorable mention to the top 5 goaltender of all time.
Top goaltender of all time. That's why it's so hard. But
no, come on. You can't do Brodeur like that. No.
Listen, my other Mount Rushmore would have Pavel Francouz on it. Actually, yeah, let's see. Who's my real Mount Rushmore of Avalanche players? Let's go Pavel Francouz, Matt Calvert. Let me think.
Prime Forgiev?
Never. Absolutely the fuck not. We'll go Darren Helm and Eric Johnson. Yeah. That's the real. Maybe Andrew Cogliano could get in there somewhere, but yeah, that's my true Mount Rushmore of Avalanche players.
And what perfect timing. Shout out once again to EJ on a great career.
EJ, the Cardinal! He will be missed, but he is entering broadcasting, so that is great news. But anyways.
Oh, how exciting.
I know. He'll be doing DU games, and he will be not in the booth, but I believe intermission for the Avs, so gotta love it. And what a perfect guy for that job, as somebody who really is familiar with the team that's currently on the ice. I love that. So I can't wait to see him commentating on his former teammates. But Dom, I've been just jabbering on for an hour now. So really just, Dom, Sharks. It's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Sharks. Dom, and we don't have any games to talk about, so I've done my best. Maybe I've made too many notes of content based on some roster moves and such that I think are important for all of you Sharks fans that are listening, or all of you Abs fans who pity me and want to listen to my babble about the Sharks and know about the team of the future. The future is teal, y'all. Don't ever forget it.
Future is teal!
But importantly, or the most notable acquisition or change here in the past week has been that on October 5th, that would be Monday for those of you who don't know, the Sharks acquired the Ryan Ellis contract in exchange for Grundstrom and prospect defenseman Artem Guryev in a trade with the Flyers, and they also received a conditional 2026, so this upcoming draft next year, 6th round pick that could become a 5th rounder. Of course, Ryan Ellis is a defenseman. He's currently 34, but he has spent the majority of his Flyers tenure injured and on injured reserve. He, in fact, has not played a single game since November of 2021 with what is a significant pelvic and hip injury.
I didn't even know that. Sorry to cut you off. I thought he was still playing because I recognized him. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot this guy was in the league. No wonder I forgot. He hasn't been on the ice in 4 years?
Yeah, and he still has both this year and next season remaining on his contract. But from everything when I was doing my research, he is unlikely to play another game in the remainder of his career. This injury does appear to be a career ender, unfortunately. But on the bright side, or still providing some analysis about it, I don't know if there's a bright side to a career-ending injury, but what to take note of from a Sharks perspective is that with the move, the Sharks have effectively bought another contract similar to the Carey Price situation, albeit far less expensive, that can ultimately be stashed on LTIR if necessary, and getting another draft pick in return. But by trading away a player in Grundstrom, who was on the roster bubble going into the season, an extra slot was opened both on the Sharks' 23-man roster and the total standard contracts allocation. And I think Corey knows this, or he should know this. He's on Puckpedia enough. But for those who aren't aware, every NHL organization, including their AHL affiliate team, is limited to 50 total contracts at any point in time each season. So that is except for players who are assigned to play in any of the junior leagues, such as the OHL or Europe, which do not count against that total. So effectively, when the Sharks were previously sitting at around 49 players signed, they needed to open up one extra slot to be able to fit in either Misa or Dickinson so that both could potentially be on the NHL roster or the AHL roster for the duration of the season and play professional hockey instead of having another league in the juniors, be that with the Sharks, the Barracuda, or both. And that's crucial, Corey, as you know. I mean, both of these are high draft picks that I have a lot of hope for, and I was expecting to see at the NHL level this season. So clearing a spot for them and getting a pick in return when we have plenty of cap space makes it feel like another Greer masterclass move. But what do you think?
I mean, Greer has continued to demonstrate time and time again that he knows what the fuck he's doing. And I think he's now moving to the point where he's not trying to accumulate more assets to use in the draft, but rather to use to acquire players. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he takes one more kind of sell here at the trade deadline with these veterans that he's acquired, because that's probably why he acquired some of them, is to just use them to acquire a few more players or assets here going into next year that he can then turn around and use to his own advantage. So I think he's just kind of biding his time here. He knows that the boys aren't going to be making the playoffs this year, but instead is trying to stack his cash, so to say, in order to then really start building that competitive roster and to have the cap space to start signing some of these young kids to their first real contracts and extensions.
Absolutely. That's a great point about the contracts. But even so, when we talk the youngest of the kids, get some experience. We're not going to win this year. It's not going to necessarily be pretty, but bring Misa along, bring Dickinson along. Don't have it just be a 10-game tryout and then send them back to the juniors. Have it be a full season of play and of practice and getting adjusted. I mean, we saw the ramp up that he was able to do with Will Smith in the past year and bring him about a little bit slowly. And in the second half of the season, when he was out on the wing, he was playing incredible. So I've predicted the Will Smith breakout to be this year, and I fully believe that. So I'd like to see something similar happen with Misa. And this leads me right into my next point, which is the official 23-man roster was announced a couple of days ago. And I'm very happy to say that Misa and Dickinson are both on the roster, as well as Colin Graff. So for those of you who weren't listening to me last season, I am very high. Yeah, I am very high on Mr. Grapper over there. He really impressed in his rookie season in the games that he played last year. And I I'm really excited that he was able to make a spot. I'm much, much happier to see him on the roster than Grunstrom. And, and Ty Dellandrea made the roster, but I would have taken Graf over him as well. So really excited to see these young guys getting more NHL playing time. With 13 forwards, it was looking like in practice skates, looking ahead to tomorrow's game, or when you're listening to this tonight's game against Vegas to open the season, that Misa would be the 13th forward. So Ryan Reeves is skating with the fourth line, which makes sense. You don't want to throw Misa out there on the fourth line, but he should be able to mix in every other shift with, let's say, the second line is expected to play some to run with Toffoli and Eklund a lot, while Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith are still on a line. A lot of people are saying, or from projecting from various Sharks writers, that perhaps Philip Kurashev will be on that top line this year. After he had his best success playing alongside Bedard, he seems possibly like a natural person to throw out there with Celebrini and Smith, but fear not, we will still get the sleepover line at some point this season.
I would be very disappointed if the sleepover line got broken up. We need Smith, Toffoli, and Celebrini together.
Yeah, and it will certainly happen at some point, and I think that's what they're trying to do is with Misa, trying to figure out where he best fits. I think they're going to mix up those top two lines a little bit, get him experience with different players, find the right line combinations. But something Warsofsky has been very adamant about is that Smith will be playing on Celebrini's wing, and that seems to be the intent for the duration of the season. They will still have him available and mix him in at center, have him take faceoffs and stuff every once in a while, and he does all that in practice. But it seems like that move is intended to not just be for this season, but for the long term, to keep Smith and Celebrini playing together with that chemistry and be one of those dynamic duos that we've talked about in the league, Corey.
Yeah, honestly, can't wait to see it. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is that teams can get better without moving up the standings. And I do think we're going to see that with the Sharks this year, in really developing some of these young talents who I know for a fact are going to be very good here in a few years. And I'm genuinely terrified of what this team is going to be here in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years, with a legitimate second line center in Misa, a legitimate number one offensive D-man, which has become so important in today's NHL with Dickinson. And then, of course, your local superstar with Macklin Celebrini. And then, you have his, let me see, how do I need to phrase this? His ranting into McKinnon, he has Will Smith to his Celebrini. So, although it's Necas to McKinnon. You know what I'm trying to say.
I do, and that chemistry there is iconic. They are like brothers or best friends who just never have a fight. So they're really fun to watch. They clearly have fun together, raise the bar for each other, and keep each other having a good time out there. And that's been key. The Sharks have been, as a young team, they haven't been fazed by it. They've been enjoying the ride, enjoying being at the NHL, and the success is going to come. So they just have to keep that positive attitude, and I have no doubts. But with all of this, with the roster getting announced and at the end of the preseason and training camp and such, that obviously means that there are a large number of players who over this past weekend and on Monday were hitting waivers and being reassigned to their AHL affiliates. And so some Sharks prospects who have been previously reassigned, we might see at some point this season, but are most likely going to spend the majority of the season in the AHL, will be forward Quentin Musty still will be taking another year in the AHL, as well as defenseman Luca Cagnoni. There's a logjam at defense right now. We have 8 on the 23-man roster, and that I haven't even gotten to a couple of the others who are in the prospect pool. A lot of those contract years, so it's going to be very competitive out there on defense. And like you said, Corey, will be flipping a lot of defensemen. So don't be surprised when Luca gets called up to play at the NHL level at some point, but he'll start in the AHL. And finally, I'm going to try to say this again. I apologize for getting it wrong, but Hao Si Wang from China, the defenseman we drafted this year at the start of the second round, was reassigned to juniors at OHL Oshawa. So he will not count towards those 50 contracts I mentioned earlier, and will have another year to develop his game and play more in the American style.
It'll be cool to see him maybe finally come up at some point too, because he's a big boy, isn't he?
But yeah, he's very big, like 6'4", 225, something like that. He's a big boy.
Somewhat unrelated. I mean, related, but not the Sharks. I think I heard somebody say on the Rangers broadcast yesterday that Matt Rempe's like 263 or something.
With
I
pads and skates, I think.
I need to confirm
I
this.
think that's correct, actually.
Matt Rempe weight. Because his height keeps changing every time they ask. They have him listed here at 255. Wait, they said the other day his height was 6'7". Here it says he's 6'9", 261. I don't think anybody actually knows how big Matt Rempe actually is. Matt Rempe, if you're listening to the show, which obviously you do if you're Matt Rempe, how big are you actually, Matt?
Yeah, and can we get it with a doctor's note certifying it, please?
Truly.
Because the answers are floating around all over the place. But back to the Sharks, because this isn't Rempe hour. This is time in the tank.
It's not?
And no, it's not.
That was creepy. Don't do that again.
Yeah, well, I was mimicking your high-pitched voice, so, you know.
No. Not allowed.
Fine. Anyway, some other forwards that maybe didn't crack the roster yet, but I'd like to see at some point this season, as would many Sharks fans. Some of the biggest names from the preseason actually are Ethan Cardwell and Pavel. I think it's Regenda, or I don't think it's Regenda, but you can correct me, Corey. Cardwell actually had a great game to finish up his preseason with a hat trick in the 4-1 victory over Vegas on October 3rd and the Sharks' second to last preseason game. And it was actually Regenda having an assist on all 4 Sharks goals in the game, but he was sent to the waiver wire 2 days later on Sunday, October 5th. So Cardwell was slide eligible and always projected to land with the AHL after preseason, but really was a standout in camp who could be pushing for a roster slot if any of the guys struggle. But Regenda was firmly on the roster bubble going into the season, right there with Grundstrom and Graf in those type of conversations of would he make the opening night roster? I know there were a lot of fans and beat writers who were saying that he maybe should. But nonetheless, it is encouraging to see both of them will remain with the organization on the Barracuda and be able to have the opportunity to be elevated to the NHL roster at some point this season. Quick list of other prospects. Cam Lund was reassigned to the AHL, and a bunch of others were waived and were able to clear waivers on the forwards and defensive side. The only ones worth mentioning, though, just because of the issue of IR, defenseman Jack Thompson is actually starting the season on IR for the non-roster. So he is going to be allocated to the AHL since he is with that non-roster designation. Same with defenseman Lucas Carlson and forward Igor Afanaseyev, who there's a lot of hype about that he has some potential in the long term. But why I bring up this with IR is because there's actually a few different types of IR that we've talked about, Corey. I know we've talked about long-term injured reserve last year, but there is this non-roster injured reserve, which kind of applies to those players who are in the AHL or just not on the NHL roster actively, right? Which I think somehow Matthew Tkachuk is on non-roster injured reserve, which doesn't make sense to me. I have to double check that, but I could have sworn I saw that on Puckpedia. So that's what kind of got me digging down this rabbit hole. But Corey, I learned something new, and I wonder if you know what the difference was, but do you know about season opening injured reserve and what that means?
I didn't know that there was a separate injured reserve list. I know that there was a whole thing with Mackenzie Blackwood. Like, they didn't put him on injured reserve and instead put him on the roster because if they did, he would have had to miss 4 games. So instead, he's only going to miss like however many he needs, but he might be ready by game 2 or 3. But I didn't know that there was a separate thing. Please elaborate.
So it's still technically under the umbrella of non-roster injured reserve in this case, but actually I pulled it up from Puckpedia regarding season opening injured reserve, and to quote, if a player is on a 2-way contract and was on an NHL roster for less than 50 games played the year prior and is injured prior to the opening night roster, or prior to like the opening game of the season with the roster, their cap hit from while injured is actually prorated based on the number of days on the roster last year multiplied by the current year cap hit. So it's a weird situation where they have to be allocated or on the non-roster, so towards the AHL level, but played less than 50 games the prior year at the NHL level. And then in this unique scenario, you actually, while they are on that injured reserve, only owe them that prorated portion of their salary, basically calculated based on their salary hit for this year, with the multiplication or the factor based on the number of games they played last year. So it's this really unique thing that I hadn't heard of before, but it's specifically for starting the season on IR, not at the NHL level, but having played less than 50 games at the NHL level last year. So, I mean, I know it's not our fun fact for today, but it was an interesting thing that I had never heard of until looking into this. So thanks to Puckpedia.
There is never a bad time for additional fun facts, Dom. So I appreciate you educating me and the rest of the audience on something that I would have had no idea existed. So always deepening my hockey knowledge, and I appreciate you for that.
Well, I glad I could bring a fun fact for you tonight. And how about this? I'm gonna finish up in the tank with the funnest of facts. Let's talk about the Sharks captaincy, Corey, because I'm not sure if you're aware. I'm sure you probably are, because you just like to know things in hockey and about the Sharks, and you just take an interest in them because
I'll pause
you're
you
my
right
friend.
there. I don't actually know. I know that they were gonna say something about it, but I don't know the results. So this is the first I'm hearing of it.
Well, coming to you today, just a few hours before we started recording, so fresh on the docket at the very end of my notes here, Ryan Warsofsky, coach of the San Jose Sharks, has confirmed that they will not have a formal captain wearing the C this season and will instead employ a total of 5 players wearing the alternate captain A on their sweater.
And who will those players be, Dom?
So starting with, first of all, Topher, Tyler Toffoli, will wear the A in all games this year, while other alternates will actually rotate depending on if it is a game at home or on the road, which is something they did last year as well in the vacancy of Couture. Although Tyler Toffoli was not the person to wear the A every game last year, that was actually Mario Ferraro, while Tyler Toffoli would only wear it in certain games. So he has, in a sense, gotten a promotion to be the full-time A, or like assistant captain, alternate captain, who, without a true captain, in his press media availability today, Ryan was saying if there is something that I don't know exactly how he phrased it, but if him or Mike Greer needed to communicate or figure out something with the team, have something on the more serious level or something that comes to, if he's talking to the players on the ice to also talk to the officials, Toph is the guy. He's the number one of the captains, which I think makes sense. It also helps because if the long-term plan is to have one of the young guys take the mantle, you don't promote a guy to captain for a year and then demote him. And also don't put the weight on a single guy's shoulders if you trust your core enough that you can spread the load on that a little bit. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, there are 4 other alternate captains that need to be listed. And so, to all of our Sharks fans, to those of you who like to humor me and just want to root for the Sharks, even if you're an Avs fan, and to Corey because you just support me, you will be pleased to hear that Macklin Celebrini will officially be donning the A on his sweater in the tank. So for all home games, along with Barclay Goodrow, they will be the 2 additional alternate captains for home games. On the road, the A will be worn by Alex Wenberg, getting that promotion after donning it late in the season last year, as well as Mario Ferraro. And something important is that this is not a demotion for Mario Ferraro. This is just about balance, was specifically said by Warsofsky in his media availability. It is interesting, but I feel like most of the team does look up to Toffoli the most. So it is not surprising in that sense.
I mean, let's be so real. Toffoli is their dad. Like all of those young kids, he's their dad. Besides, of course, Joe Thornton, but Joe Thornton doesn't play, so Toffoli's their dad on the ice. And I mean, that just feels like the logical choice. Like if they did choose to name a captain, that's That's who I would have went with, at least in the time being, in the interim, before obviously Celebrini is given the C. But I do appreciate that nowadays we're giving these young players time to learn, time to be mentored under these veteran players instead of just handing them the C right away. Like, by all means, Gabriel Landeskog is, in my opinion, obviously the best captain in the league. And I mean, he is the longest serving captain in the NHL of 14 years. And, you know, he was handed the captaincy pretty much straight out of the gate. And I mean, so was Connor McDavid. They just, not to say that those were incorrect choices, but I mean, I think that's a lot to throw on an 18-year-old, especially in a room full of veterans as well. So it's good that Celebrini will have the opportunity to develop his leadership skills, which I'm sure learning under Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon, he will do quite effortlessly. But he isn't being given the pressure of, oh, you know, you're our next great player. You're the captain now. He's being given time.
Right, and a C on the sweater is not going to make him play better, but
No.
it could make him play worse. The
Yes.
pressure could get to him, and we don't want to risk his development finding out. And there's the argument that if they're made for the moment, if they're really that good, they'll step up to the plate, like a McDavid did, like a Landeskog, like a Sidney Crosby. But you know what? Why risk it? Why do that if it's not necessary? And I think there is some value of having him as the alternate captain because he is going to be the leader of the future, but he's not the most veteran on the whole team. And something else Warsofsky said was, we have a lot of leaders on this team who aren't wearing any letter at all. And that's great. The letter, yes, it's there, but you have leaders who wear the letter, you have leaders who don't wear the letter, and there's still people learning from each other. He specifically said how Macklein's going to be learning from Revo or Ryan Reeves this season, even though Ryan Reeves is going to be playing on the fourth line or sometimes be a healthy scratch. There's still something everybody can learn, especially at that young age. And so I just want to quote what Warsofsky said, specifically when asking questions about Celebrini wearing the A. And I think you led into this perfectly, Corey, and just read my mind, his mind, and know exactly how to be a good hockey coach. So props to you. I want Mac to be Mac. And this is a direct quote, sorry. I want Mac to be Mac. I don't think he needs to go be Joe Sakic or Sidney Crosby. He needs to be Macklin Celebrini and lead in his own way. I'm not going to micromanage how he leads. That right there is what the coach of the Sharks said, folks. That right there is how you grow a leader, by giving them the confidence and the independence to lead in their own way, learn in their own way, including by learning from their mistakes, but also having that trust, showing that faith in them that they are a leader and that they already have a lot of tools and they're just continuing to get better. So I have no doubt with that type of support, Macklin Celebrini is going to be ready to step up into being the captain here in just a year or two and take this team to the promised land. The future is teal, y'all.
Future is teal. That's a great quote. I love that. Gosh, when you said he's going to learn under Ryan Reeves, I was like, oh no. But no, he's going to turn out great.
Well, yeah, and actually in training camp, though, and this was something that Coach was asked about too, Ryan Reeves has been shadow boxing and teaching a lot of the young guys how to fight, and Coach was trying not to laugh, but he also was like...
Oh my gosh. Keep going.
He was trying not to laugh. He was trying not to like full-blown endorse it. But at the same time, something he did say is this is the way the NHL is going. With all the clean hits that turn into fights, a lot of these players, especially these young players, want to learn how to defend themselves so they can hit physically and be able to defend themselves if someone comes charging them looking for a fight after a clean hit. And so Revo's got that intensity. He's always had that intensity and probably has more experience in fights, maybe right up there with Evander Kane. So in the entire league. So also former Shark. So what better person to learn from, learn a couple of techniques just to have a little self-defense and a little fun as well at the end of practice. So really great to see that leadership in that way and teaching how to fight in a healthier self-defense manner, which I think is why we should all learn. It's just be able to have some self-defense qualities. If you're out there in a physical environment where you could get hit, be prepared and know how to defend yourself. I think that's a good general approach for these young guys.
Yeah, definitely can't go wrong with that. Yeah, that's funny. Just imagining Revo like just showing these 18-year-olds. All right, kids, here's how you throw a punch. You would be shocked. I was having this conversation the other day, and we'll kibosh it after I say it, but you'd be shocked how many people like don't know how to actually throw a punch. So just interesting stuff. But yeah, that's funny. That's cute. That's adorable.
Just remember, guys, if it's in a fight on the ice, there's just 3 things first: stick, gloves, shirt. Then we'll get to the throwing a punch part.
All right. Well, thank you, Dom, for diving into the tank. I'm glad we could bring the segment back since we didn't really have it in the first episode, but the segment is, of course, of legendary status at this point. But was there any other points that you had for us today from the tank?
No, I think that's my final one from the tank. Very, very excited to play Vegas tomorrow night and take it to them. Just as a quick update, the Kings are wearing white helmets that look normal tonight as they're playing Vegas and are already up 2-0. So fuck Vegas.
I mean, you're in a good position because poor Kings are having to play them on a back-to-back, but that means Vegas is playing you on a back-to-back, which is a good sign. So I'm hoping the best for you guys. I really am. I will be watching. I'm actually watching the Battle of Alberta right now, so I'm glad you're keeping an eye on your upcoming opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, I will pass it back to you because I think you have an interesting segment that I was not expecting. But looking at your sheet here, I'm quite intrigued and excited to see what you have to say.
All righty, everybody. Well, we'll get into our final segment here. In case, man, I can't even say this with a straight face. In case you didn't know, hockey is ass. You should not be watching hockey. Who and why would you ever want to watch stupid, stinky hockey? Instead, you should watch baseball because hockey is dumb and stupid. Why would you watch that? Boo! Okay, now that everybody has blown up the comment sections, allow me to elaborate. First, I like baseball. I played it in high school, and I do have a love for it, despite it being slow and, well, boring. But there is nothing like the vibe of a warm summer evening with a cold soda and a ballpark hot dog watching the Rockies get their shit rocked at Coors Field. Wouldn't you say, Dom? Just Coors Field, a baseball field, just fun to go to on those warm summer evenings. Just enjoy a ball game. You're hanging out with your friends and your family. Maybe you're drinking more than just soda. Having a good time, you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it on here, but
You can talk about
it's
alcohol.
named the field is named Coors Field for a reason. So there is one thing I will typically choose to drink, and it may or may not be the banquet beer. But no, seriously, you're right. Being in that outfield lower bowl because the Rockies tickets are so cheap that I can sit just right by the foul pole on the right field. What a great place to be for like $30 a seat when the Rockies are just ass, as you said, every year.
Fuck, dude. Even less than that most of the time. So yeah, if you just ever need a cheap date for a summer night or, maybe early spring, maybe late summer, it doesn't really matter. Rockies games are always a great one to go to, especially if you're a fan of another team. So definitely go check out Coors Field. It's a vibe though. It's a vibe though, because I mean you have the mile high seats up there that are painted purple. You get a really good view of Denver. It's kind of awesome. Can't lie. Also, my grandpa helped build Coors Field, so you should go and you should pay respects to him because that's pretty awesome. All right. But
well, that's a very fun fact that I did not know as well. That's really cool. I'll have to do that next time. Yeah.
But secondly, ESPN MLB analyst Ben McDonald clearly thinks that hockey is the worst way to spend your time. Quote, "There is zero chance I'll be watching. I'm just gonna be honest with you," close quote, which is just sad. His co-host was trying to hype up both the season puck drop and him, and I have truly never heard a person more disinterested in anything in my life. Just total, I think, apathy is the word. Is that the right word?
Yeah, I think that sounds correct.
Apathy for sure. Total apathy towards it in his voice as well. And, his co-host did even try to save him after he said that by saying, of course he'd be watching, that he's an employee of ESPN. And Ben then doubled down. What particularly frustrates me about these comments, though, is twofold. One is it continues to show that hockey is the black sheep of the 4 major North American sports and on ESPN. ESPN hardly does anything to advertise hockey, and even their announcers apparently couldn't give a shit. 2 is that the baseball playoffs are beginning to wind down at this point of the year, and so baseball fans may be searching for what sport to begin watching next now that their season is over. And when you hear an absolutely glowing endorsement like that from Ben McDonald, how are we ever supposed to grow the game? You don't need to watch it, Ben, but at least engage.
Like a kid who won't eat their vegetables. You don't know you hate it until you try it. Totally not at all related to anything you just said, and I don't know why it made me think of it other than just charismatic commentators who do care about hockey. Is it just me, but watching intermission reports for NHL games, is PK Subban like NHL Stephen A 30 years from now?
Yeah, he is. Oh my God. Why would you say that? I hate Stephen A. And then you hit me with that. But if
I mean, but
hold on.
He's loud, he's proud, he's energetic.
If the Subanator does anything right, it's that he always stands up for hockey, especially to Stephen A. He always goes out and is a great representative of the game and describes why it is such a great sport and why the athletes are truly the best in the world. So PK himself, I have to absolutely admire him for always being a, what's the word? Ambassador, there we go, of the game of hockey. So thank you for that, PK. Maybe he would be insulted if we compared him to Stephen A. So I'm going to recount that statement. I do not believe that.
Well, you're right, but that's what it was. It was because that clip I saw recently of him going toe-to-toe with Stephen A. when Stephen A. was shitting on the NHL, and now Ben shitting on the NHL. That's how we got full circle. That's how I got there, folks. My brain works in interesting ADHD ways. Sorry I took us on a little side tangent there, but okay. Love to the Subanator for real, because while I was not the biggest fan of him sometimes when he played, because he wasn't on my team and he was irritatingly good and physical sometimes, love him as a commentator. Can't get enough of him. Please put him on more networks or just more airtime, because he's super funny to watch and listen to, but he knows what he's talking about. He really does.
Most of the time. I don't always agree with his takes, but that's the nature of sports commentating, sports analytics. I'm sure he wouldn't agree with all of our takes either, and that is okay. We're not meant to say things that everybody is going to agree with all the time, as long as they're not hurtful. I don't know. Sometimes I might be a little.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of the heated debate.
Context is important. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, well, sorry I've derailed us here at the very end of the evening, but that was fun. Hey, Captain Avalanche Fancast for you folks. Give us some more ideas that we can just have randomly interjected here at the end. That's what the comment section is for. Give us something to debate.
But yeah, needless to say, it's just disappointing. So if you are a baseball fan out there looking for a sport once your thing ends and you're checking us out, please consider hockey as your next time investment here. Because don't listen to Ben McDonald. He's a hoser, as we would say here in hockey. So ooga booga. Time for your 3 players of the week, and it is an oops all goalies edition. Number 3 is Spencer Knight, who I thought, despite in being a part of a losing effort, played fucking incredible against the Panthers. He only let in 3 as he was shelled the entire night, and was playing behind a very inexperienced Blackhawks squad, who actually did pretty decent against Bob, who really wasn't having a great night, letting in 2 on a much fewer number of shots. But, that's just that depth for the Panthers. So very, very well done on his part. Number 2 is Artur Shilovs, who had his first career shutout against the Rangers, who are supposed to be a playoff team this year, or who are already not looking great. But again, game 1. And number 1, if you couldn't have guessed, it's Scott Wedgwood, my dad, who just played out of his gourd and deserved the shutout. It's a spiritual shutout, really. So we'll just look at it like that. Now, everybody, this season, I have decided for my own sanity that Dom and I will be splitting fun fact duties. So, because I often struggled to get a fun fact every week, and I always want to make sure that you have a fun fact. So, thankfully for us, not only does Dom have a fun fact this week, he'll have some in his future weeks when it is his turn as well. He's done very well at preparing, but I'm talking in circles here. Dom has your fun fact this week. So, Dom, please enlighten us on, I think I have a quiz here, don't I?
Just a little bit. And fun fact, Dom has fun facts that don't involve dad jokes. So something new that the fans maybe didn't know. I know, for both of our sakes, all of our sakes, really. Sorry again to everyone that
Don't apologize.
You're right. I'm not sorry that I'm not funny. But seriously, in all seriousness, let's get back to fun. Seriously, let's have fun. We've talked about the preseason battle of Florida between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers, which had a combined 450 penalty minutes, including 21 game misconducts and 38 total power plays in 2 games. While this was a series of preseason games, it got me thinking about what the most penalty minutes in a single regular season game was. And so let me take you back to March 5th, 2004. It was a game between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Ottawa Senators with a combined total of 419 penalty minutes in a single game. 409 of those minutes were tallied in the third period alone, with 21 fighting majors, 20 players ejected, and even a legendary goalie fight between Patrick Lalime and Robert Esche that was held at center ice. In this game, Philly not only setting the record for combined penalty minutes in an NHL regular season game, Philly also set the record for the most penalty minutes by a single team in a regular season game with 213, with Ottawa slotting into third on the all-time list with 206. So, Corey, do you know which team previously held the record for 23 years for the most penalty minutes in a regular season game?
I'm shocked it wasn't the Flyers already. Because that's the Broad Street Bully years. Or no, that's a little 2004 is way past that. Never mind, I'm stupid. That's the 70s. Forgive me, Flyers fans who are not listening. Let's go the Bruins.
You know, that's actually a good guess overall, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But February 26, 1981, the Minnesota North Stars.
Oh.
Come on, Corey, get your booze in. Yeah. The Minnesota North Stars totaled 211 penalty minutes in a game that set records for both individual and team penalty minutes. Individual team penalty minutes and combined penalty minutes in the NHL regular season game at 406 minutes. So that record of 406 minutes with 211 for one team both of those records stood for 23 years until that game between the Flyers and Senators in 2004. Now, I guess you probably know the answer because I gave you a hint, but I was going to ask you, do you happen to know who the North Stars opponent was in that game? Hint, it's another team that you like to hate, but it is not in the Western Conference.
Well, yes, clearly not. So, is it the Boston Bruins?
Wow, crazy. You got it right. Look at you go. You're so smart. They actually had 195 penalty minutes in that game, which is still good for top 10 all time by a single team in a single game. So there's your fun fact today, folks. A lot of penalty minutes in those games. And even though that series between Florida and Tampa was crazy, and it's also preseason, so it doesn't count the same, we've actually seen crazier in a single game in the regular season before, even if it's not been that often.
Somehow. Well, that was fun. See, everybody, I told you not all the episodes were 2.5 hours, which is good for me because I need time to edit it and I need time to sleep. So it all works out in the end. Well done. Any closing remarks here before I take us home?
I'm tired too. So yeah, bed sounds lovely, but I appreciate all of you who've listened in. Shout out to the few different people in my life who I've just run into, talked to recently, and who have expressed interest or told me you've listened to the podcast. I did
Hell
not
yeah.
realize that before. I really appreciate y'all, and it's really cool to know that you have listened or continue to listen and enjoy it. So even though you've been listening or this whole time, or if it's your first episode, it's always nice to hear, and it really helped uplift me. Because it's just really cool to know that you guys care or enjoy it. So thank you.
And you're helping our retention numbers, which I like seeing pretty graphs. So keep listening to the full episodes. We really appreciate those who do listen to the entire episode. Obviously, if there's just certain parts you want to hear, I understand. I can't stop you, but we really do appreciate it if you make it through the entire experience. You don't need to listen to the whole episode all at the same time. I always chunk them up when I'm reviewing them. So, 30 minutes at a time, hour while you're cleaning. So, just you don't need to do the whole thing. But we do appreciate if you at some point make it through the entire episode. It does genuinely mean a lot to us. But with that being said, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, reach out to us on our socials or email, and we'll be happy to try and answer it. We would love to hear and read your thoughts on our Instagram page. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and to share this podcast everywhere you can with everyone you can. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.